This is not a test. You weren't supposed to study. Do not suddenly feel stressed. Are there any feelings, theories, or opinions about this whole business of the golden calf? Any? Yeah. Yes.
I've got a lot of problems with it. For one thing, Aaron got off very easily.
I'll say.
And so I have a question. Didn't he pound the gold and put it in the water and make them drink it?
Yes.
And then, so I wonder, is that poison? Because then there was a plague. It mentions a plague, but then it doesn't say, like the plague disappeared, like usually. You know, there's a plague and then they do something to reverse it and stop it. It just says there was a plague.
So we're questioning Aaron's role. Any other thoughts, questions, theories?
Just in the movie, in the movie, Aaron doesn't want to, but they sort of make him. Charles.
Next year, instead of reading the parasha, we'll be screening the movie on Shabbat.
But no, but in the book, it looks like he went along with it. And when Moses says why, he says, well, they made me, you know.
Okay, so confession time. Confession time. I've never seen the movie. I've never seen the movie, but if you read the original, where they got the screenplay from, the original in this thing called the Torah, you will see that Aaron was with them. Aaron was with them all the way. Any other? Hadassah, yes, ma'am.
I agree with Cynthia. That I was thinking, was I was reading it is, it's elementary spirituality to have to see something. It's like spiritual kindergarten. You gotta have an idol. But then you have this maturity where I don't need to look at something I made. It's just like what we read in the Torah about an idol. And who was it, Ezekiel? Was it Ezekiel taunting them? Where's your God? Is he using the bathroom? Is he asleep? Like, why would you think something you made had any power of your life? So it shows you're elementary in your spirituality.
Which takes us back to the Midrash about Abraham and his father, allegedly the idol. Exactly. Phil.
So, I mean, the story just shows that this is still the generation coming out of Egypt, and they're not, they're grown up in Egypt around all these idol worshipers. So they don't know anything different. They don't know about God until they go to the desert. So it's interesting that Moses is the one who actually tries to get them back on track, and he's not allowed to go into the promised land.
And I always felt bad.
We're going to take two more. We're going to go to Linda and then to Tom.
So, my concern, because I did read the whole parsha, is not just so much about the calf, but that you could be put to death for not observing Shabbat. Somehow I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, yes. Oh, yes. It's in the text. Never happened, but it's in the text. And Tom.
God was much too harsh, I think, on the people.
Okay.
Let's blame it on the Catholics.
Okay. So God was much too harsh. Set against the background of a number of other theories. Hadassah says these people are spiritually immature, which is flowed very nicely into the next point that came from Phil. They grew up in a world where you made your own gods, and one could argue that Moses is gone a long time, and maybe they start panicking. They start panicking. Another theory, which I mentioned a couple of weeks ago from our ancient sages, is that the Torah is a little bit out of sequence. That first we have the golden calf, and then we have the mention and the construction of the tabernacle. Because God is on this learning curve about the people that he's created. And they comes to understand that the people need some element of physicality, of something in their midst that they can have as the locus, as the point where they go to find God. And as Tom points out, God gets very, and there's another theory that one of my rabbis in rabbinical school taught me, that the whole thing is a setup.
Very much so.
That it's a setup, and that God wasn't surprised that it happened. And that this had to happen in order for the people to move forward. But coming back to Tom's point, which of course is no better than the rest, but it's where I'm going, so it was very helpful that it came and that Tom shared it and that it came last, is that God gets beyond irate, beyond livid. If you read the text, God wants to get rid of the people. God is blowing a fuse to put the least of it, say the least of it, and he wants to hit the reset button. Not for the first time. This seems to happen with God over and over. There's the Garden of Eden, where God becomes very disappointed with the people. Only two of them. God becomes very disappointed with that which God has created to be God's own soulmates, as their connector, made in God's image, and yet they stray. And then there's the flood, where God says, I can't take this. I'm going to have to destroy them all and hit the reset button.
But then he promised.
Again, and you were going to add something else? And then there is Sodom and Gomorrah. And God says, look at these people who have wandered so far away from what I've told them. I'm going to have to hit the reset button again. And again. And again. So this morning, the scene is that God and God's chosen one, really God's most intimate soulmate, Moses, it's almost like they're on honeymoon together. They're alone on top of the mountain for 40 days. They're lost together in a world of their own, dictating and writing laws and rituals for the people up in the mountain, almost a metaphor for up in heaven together. And at the same time, eventually down below on the ground, there is a storm that's brewing, that is going to take God back to a familiar place, to a place that almost won't let go of God. It keeps on pulling him back in. It's going to usher in a new episode of rage, and disappointment, and ultimately destruction. Hello, darkness, my old friend. You've come to talk with me again. From up above, God looks down and notices that the people down below become very anxious. And they create a new god for themselves, this golden calf of molten jewels. And the Torah scholar Aviva Zornberg writes, the golden calf is a disaster that has been waiting to happen. Inconceivable treachery. It is also an inevitable reaction to revelation. Such insolence, such ingratitude, such impetuousness, a total breakdown of the system once again. Time for God to hit that reset button once again. And you know, when it comes to Moses, Moses hasn't had the easiest time with these people. They're a bit of a burden, to say the least of it. You could understand if maybe Moses stood back and said, "Oh, well, you do what you need to do, God." But the Moses that responds is a very passionate and emotional Moses. This is the Moses that God chose to be his partner, a Moses of emotion, of moral conviction. And in no time, their interaction has changed modes. Just a moment ago, they were on honeymoon, and now God and Moses are butting heads. They've moved from the mountaintop, and now they're in the kitchen, and plates are flying, and voices are rising in an almighty crescendo, and Moses says, "God, this is enough. You do this every time. How much longer are you going to keep on going around and round in circles, getting disappointed, destroying, rebirthing, making covenants, getting disappointed? You got yourself into this. Now live with it." This is the pushback. It's the exchange. It's the challenge. This is the spice, in Hebrew, what we would call charif, spiciness of Moses that God saw in him. And the reason why God picked him. And God yells back and says, "Leave me alone. If I want to destroy them, I'll destroy them." And Moses says, "No." That's it. There's a kind of closeness and a sense of someone being honest enough, of knowing you well enough to say no to you, to not accept what you're saying, to stand up to you. It's that I think allows Moses to be more successful than that other guy, the sailor named Noah, and the first responder who rushes around trying to put out fires named Abraham. Moses is not willing to tolerate God's naivete. It's a sense of, you keep me up here for 40 days and expect them to get by without me? They're your children. Don't you know them yet? Of course they're going to act out. Of course they're going to seek a new leader, a new source of faith, even if it's one of their own creation. The calf is a natural result of this unnatural disruption. But the truth is that standing in for God with the people, it unnerves Moses, because each time that, in Aviva Zorenberg's words, that godly power is invested in Moses, and Moses gains what Zorenberg calls a divine charismatic force, each time this happens, he seems to lose a part of his humanity. The more that God is invested in him, he seems to lose a part of himself. And so this is a bewildering and confusing and amazing, empowering maybe, moment. It takes us back all the way to Genesis, when God said, "Let us make humanity in our image, after our likeness." So that's what happens. And evidently the consequence of that is the people have it in them to choose to follow God and or to reject God. When we were created in God's image, it gave us this incredible opportunity to experience life, its essence, its potentials, its excitements, its passions, its dramas, as we try to spend a lifetime mastering this experience. And yet that notion that we were created in God's image, which is the foundation of our human experience, that also binds us in a relationship with God that we can't get out of. We're stuck. We're stuck with God. God's stuck with us. God at times seems as experienced at this thing called life as we are. It seems as if God is trying to navigate a successful path with us, almost like the new parent learning to be a parent at the same time that the child learns to be a child. And this, for better or for worse, is the adventure that we are on. And that continues through our own lifetime and forever. Shabbat Shalom.